Movies that should have been nominated for an Oscar but weren't nominated for an Oscar.
You know, typical Oscar bullshit.
Typical. Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, every single year, you know, I feel like if you follow the Oscars, there's always that one movie that you wanted to be nominated for an Oscar that was not included. And especially now, because I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, they expanded the amount of films that can be nominated. Because before it was, 5? It was a pretty low amount of films. Now it's 8, I think. It might even be 10. It's a pretty wide range of movies that can be nominated now. But still, you know, there's so many freaking movies that come out every year. It's hard. You want, like, you like a movie a lot, you want it to be recognized, and it's not there. So today, we're going to talk about the movies that should have been nominated. And the first movie
Fight Club.
Is Fight Club. Fight Club has one hell of a cult following. And what year did it come out? 1999?
Yep.
So 1999, it's been one of the most highly regarded movies for a long time. It's on IMDb's top 250, and it's like in the top, I think it's in the top 20, easily. It's one of the best movies ever, according to IMDb.
It has a great cast, an exceptional script, great production, and when you look at it, the philosophical meaning behind it and the mental road that's traveled while watching it is just something that you don't see very often.
Yeah, the long story short is coming out in 1999 means that was before they expanded the amount of pictures that could be nominated. So that was still back in the 5-film nomination, maybe 6, whatever. So that probably, you know, I would assume if we were at the amount we can nominate now, it probably would have been nominated. So what else was nominated in 1999? I believe that might have been Saving Private Ryan. So Saving Private Ryan, I believe, won Best Picture that year.
Which was an exceptional movie. You can't argue that.
I mean, Saving Private Ryan, I'm going to level with you right now. There's no way Fight Club is better than Saving Private Ryan.
No.
It didn't... Fight Club was a great thriller. It had a cool psychological element to it. It had a great twist, which, you know, is kind of common knowledge now, but if you can remember the first time you saw Fight Club, that was, like, wild.
Though it's a different type of film in its entirety, it almost took that same type of mental trip as, like, Psycho.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not a horror movie. It doesn't have that thriller aspect to it where people are getting slain left and right. But that level of trippiness as you start to see the veil unfold like you did in Psycho and you realize just how deep this goes, it was pretty much on par with that.
Yeah, I mean, you have Brad Pitt, who, you know, has always been consistent. I feel like Brad Pitt and Edward Norton are two actors who are very rarely in a bad movie.
Yeah, people fail to recognize the level of quality that Brad Pitt brings. I mean, he's obviously got a lot of renown for his acting, but I mean, a lot of people think of him as the pretty boy who kind of skates by on his looks because he looks like the typical boy next door, I guess.
Yeah, and that was back in the era of Brad Pitt's body.
Yeah, he had those abs. You just want to oil them.
I do want to interject and just say that Saving Private Ryan did not win. It was Shakespeare in Love that year.
What the fuck is that? So Saving Private Ryan didn't win, but it was nominated. What else was nominated in 99?
Shakespeare in Love was nominated. Elizabeth, Life is Beautiful, and The Thin Red Line.
Okay, so the only one of those I even have in memory is Saving Private Ryan. So, you know,
which speaks to the quality of these other films.
Yeah, who the fuck has watched any of those other three?
Oh yeah, I watch Elizabeth every time before I go to bed.
Shakespeare in Love really deserved that victory. Yeah.
We don't even know definitively who Shakespeare was, yet somehow he's an Oscar nominee.
Who wants to watch Shakespeare?
Shit, we didn't like reading him. Why the fuck would we want to watch him?
But Saving Private Ryan, you know, that movie... I think something that is not taken into account enough with movies is how much they influence filmmaking.
Oh,
Saving
of course.
Private Ryan is one of the highest regarded war films because of its realistic depiction of battle, especially with that D-Day scene.
Not to mention, I mean, it's the typical war movie action scenes that were obviously done to a much higher quality than they've been done before with Saving Private Ryan, like you said, the D-Day invasion. But what is cool about Saving Private Ryan is one of the first military movies that takes a different road. Like, when you watch a lot of the old war movies, it's all about the conflict from point A to point B and achieving victory.
Yeah.
That was one of the first films that kind of took a darker look at things, and instead of being focused on the historical events that unfolded, as the movie progresses, it's more about the struggles that these characters ensue with themselves.
And if you look at war movies ever since Saving Private Ryan, they really do follow that template. Black Hawk Down, Jarhead, Hurt Locker, American Sniper. We did a video on it. Click here and you can watch it. And but they all are very character-centric. Before that, they were very conflict-centric.
When you think about it, without Saving Private Ryan, you don't have HBO's Band of Brothers.
Because that was all the same people, pretty much.
Yeah, and that is what set the tone for being able to have that war movie where it's all about the characters.
And now that we've completed that tangent, Fight Club. Obviously, we're pretty big Saving Private Ryan fans. Fight Club did the same thing. Obviously not for war movies, for psychological thrillers.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you did have... Was 7 before Fight Club? I think it was. And then Memento came out, fairly early. But Fight Club was in that kind of like group of movies that did this psychological aspect. And it added in the acting in Fight Club was so powerful, especially when you have Edward Norton and Brad Pitt. That was a very powerful dynamic between those two that lasted the whole movie. And the way it was shot with the narration, narration is something you can fuck up so easily. It can fucking ruin your movie.
Something as simple as just the wrong voice, and suddenly you're completely detached from the film.
And Edward Norton hit that perfectly on point.
Oh, he does.
And there are so many things, Fight Club is a very deep film. There's a lot of themes behind it. Their whole kind of theme to destroying the credit companies, to, kind of backing everyone up. Probably not the most realistic plan, but it's, it definitely kind of brings this kind of pretty much domestic terrorism to light.
What I love about that movie, too, is it is the perfect thriller mental depiction of the time. When you look at that at the end of the 90s, like many decades before, was about rebellion from social norms and breaking the system. But in the 90s especially, you have grunge music coming out. Punk rock is probably at its highest point commercially. But what a lot of those different aspects brought to the table is there was a struggle, because for the first time people were feeling rebellious and they had the freedom to express it, but the times were changing and they really didn't know what they were rebelling against anymore, and it became more of a struggle against yourself instead of the man or some overbearing power. It was more about you were dealing with the struggle of life and finding your place in life and dealing with your own demons, and that movie perfectly depicts that time period.
Yeah, it was definitely a very unique take. I mean, it was based on a book, but it really brought that to the forefront. And everything about it, the way the colors were graded in that movie, they changed. The way he goes to therapy and kind of abuses it, just for his own mental support, was a very interesting concept to kind of address. They had this really cool psychological break, and it's interesting to watch. There are a lot of aspects of the film that are not super realistic, but it's really not that type of film. It's an idealistic type of film. It's all about these themes that are kind of running throughout it. And the bottom line to this argument is that who the fuck, other than Saving Private Ryan, who has watched any of those other movies in 1999? Shakespeare in Love, is anyone watching that more than Fight Club? I get that popularity is not everything, but Fight Club had so much influence it had so, like, those actors carried and carried and carried through their career. And Fight Club has been cited by a lot of different filmmakers as a highly influential film. And it still has a huge cult following.
I mean, when you think about it, like when we're talking about Saving Private Ryan and the way it gets more involved with the characters and not so much the events going around it, Fight Club is very similar to that. And when you think about it, those two movies came out at about the same time and really together changed filmmaking going forward, because as you've seen, shit tons of the movies coming out now take that perspective with their characters. Something that was made as a fresh idea then has changed and resonated with us since, because now most movies aren't successful unless you can dive deeper into that character. If you don't have that character depth, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, that is very true. Other than the very cash-grabbing blockbuster movies.
Oh, yeah, everyone loves action, but that's not viewed as an artistic piece.
If you're making an Oscar-caliber movie, it has to have that deep character. And there are plenty of movies before it where there aren't particularly deep characters. They're very plot-driven movies. And now you don't see many plot-driven movies nominated for Best Picture other than Inception or something like that. Drive is a very commonly held movie. Like, if you Google right now movies that should have been nominated, Drive is going to be on that list.
Yeah, of
no
course.
matter